Hello, everyone. This is Dominic from Tonebase, and I'm just really happy to have Dr. Irene Kim with us today. She'll be talking about Liszt's devilish Mephisto Waltz No. 1. We'll be hearing a performance of this piece at the very end of the live stream. But we're going to have a walkthrough on different, musical, technical challenges to lead up, to prepare us for this experience at the end. And I can think of no one better to talk about this piece than Irene, because she's a sensational Liszt pianist. She's won prizes in multiple competitions, the Los Angeles Liszt competition, among others. And she's a real, absolute gem to have, and a returning tone-based artist. So please welcome Irene, and I'll turn this over to you now.
Thanks so much, Dominic. It's so great to be back here on Tonebase Live. And I'm even more excited to share this piece with you, Mephisto Waltz No. 1 by Franz Liszt. It's a piece that keeps me very much in shape and also keeps my imagination in working order. So I'll definitely be giving you some tips and tricks, especially for those nasty technical spots. But more importantly, I wanted to walk you through the programmatic, dramatic aspects of this piece so that it can be more fun to practice. Your performance will just be brighter, more brilliant, right? Just more, just full of impact. So let's go ahead with the story time portion, if you will. So once long ago, true story, in the 15th century, there lived a man named Johann Faust. He walked around claiming that he had sold his soul to the devil in exchange for a vast knowledge in astrology, philosophy, medicine, alchemy, and even magic. And so when he died in an explosion during one of his alchemical experiments, he became a literal legend. So many people were obsessed with this devilish tale, right? And perhaps the most famous, the most well-known version of this is that by Goethe. And this play by Goethe inspired so many composers. Schumann wrote his scenes from Goethe's Faust. Gounod wrote his Faust opera. The Damnation of Faust by Berlioz, and even Liszt himself wrote a Faust symphony based on Goethe's version. This Mephisto Waltz No. 1, however, along with numbers 2, 3, 4, and an orchestral piece called The Night Procession, which was supposed to be originally paired with the orchestral version of Mephisto Waltz No. 1. They're all based on Nikolaus Lenau's version of the Faust legend. And there are some notable differences between the two. So let's just talk a little bit about them. In Goethe's, Faust makes a binding contract with Mephistopheles, the devil incarnate. But somehow the angels are able to save not him, but his soul, and his soul is able to go up to heaven. In Lenau's version, however, the absolute values of morality are more obscure, and Faust finds that there is no way out. There is no salvation to be found, and perhaps that reflects Lenau's own mental illness and personal despair that he was experiencing at the time of writing. So you can really feel this fatalism, right? Faust's soul belongs to the devil forever. That fatalism in this piece. So I want to talk a little bit about the episode that this piece is now based on, the dance at the village inn. There's a program note that often gets printed in the score, and I just want to read that to you here. So there is a wedding feast in progress in the village inn with music, dancing, carousing. Mephistopheles and Faust pass by, and Mephistopheles induces Faust to enter and take part in the festivities. Mephistopheles snatches the fiddle from the hands of a lethargic fiddler and draws from it indescribably seductive and intoxicating strains. The amorous Faust whirls about with a full-blooded village beauty in a wild dance. They waltz in mad abandon out of the room, into the open, away into the woods. The sounds of the fiddle grow softer and softer, and the nightingale warbles his love-laden song. So it's a pretty descriptive synopsis. We kind of get an idea of what's going on. But now I don't know how many of you have actually read Lenau's own words. I promise you it is definitely worth a read. It is as every bit scandalous as you might imagine it to be. So before I share any excerpts from it, I just want to check in with Dominic here that we're running a PG-13 show here, are we not?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I thought. So I think the only snippet that I'm allowed to just safely share with you today is the part about Mephistopheles snatching the fiddle. So here he is. My dear people, my dear musicians, your poor bowstrings are loose and lack spirit. Your waltz is good enough for the lame with infirm toes, but not for the young and hot-blooded. Give me a fiddle. A different tune is about to be played, and in the pub there will be wild dancing. So very descriptive. You can only imagine what then Lenau goes on to describe what kind of seductive and intoxicating strains Mephistopheles is drawing out from the fiddle, right? So much so that there are specific images that appear, right? Like a man trying to seduce a woman, two boys fighting over a girl, etc. And then after that section, Lenau writes about what exactly Faust and the full-blooded village beauty are doing out in the woods. Like I said, scandalous. So the interesting thing here is that these two sections, the part about Mephistopheles, like the images that come out of his fiddle, right, while he's playing, and the description about Faust and what he's doing, like the villagers who are dancing and out in the woods, who knows, those things in Liszt's Mephisto Waltz, they kind of get blurred so that you're not really sure what reality is. Is Mephistopheles actually manipulating? Of course he is. But what is actually happening? So that's something I like to fiddle around with while I'm looking at this piece. So let's dig in. Let's go ahead and go straight into the piece with one of the most iconic beginnings in piano literature, right? We have the devil tuning his fiddle. So an empty bar of rest. 1, 2. Here we have the strings of the violin. Okay, let's talk just a couple things. I know the grace notes are written in the left hand, which is fine. You can play it like that. But I like to get a little bit more twang, so I split it, and also I can control the repeated notes a little bit better in my right hand. And then if you look at measure 1, 11, 12, 13, 14, you have this big chord. For me, my hands can't really stretch that far and play it successfully, so I just simply rewrite that F sharp down here. And no one's gonna notice because you're busy layering, showing the layering of notes. Right, so the attention is there. And here he turns his tuning pegs. And he starts tuning again. And when you're playing repeated notes, you always want to move something so you don't get stuck. So either you can move on the keys or you can move, just very ever so gently. Your wrist is always a little bit in motion. Here, tunes again. And off we go. With octaves that leap and are, fast, you want always to have a launching point and a direction. That's right, so my launching point is the bottom note and I'm gonna go up. For the ones that zigzag across, I always practice it in either patterns of 2 or 3s or 4s or 5s so that you can just be in control of wherever you're going. And here these chords in rapid succession. If you just play them, your hands kind of splat out, right? Because of the force that you're using. So what I like to do is just grab with my fingers ever so slightly. Kind of like when a cat, when they do the massage, like they kind of do that motion just a little bit. then you stay in place and you get a firm grip on the chords. And here Mephistopheles is forming the theme. He's trying it out. So a bit tentative. And then we get the layering in the other way. And the tuning is concluded. Who knew the devil needed so much time to tune his fiddle, right? Okay, next part, we have the theme, the waltz theme. And this is a good spot for you to determine the tempo. If you play, we've all heard tons of pianists play. Okay, I don't care who's playing the fiddle, the devil, me, anybody, your favorite violinist. Nobody wants to dance to that. Nobody can dance to that. So just kind of joyous, kind of swinging. So that's fast enough. I don't know. I don't want to play it faster than that. So you keep with the theme. And here, I like to take the optional left, right, because then my left hand is right there for this, and I trust my right hand to jump faster than my left hand. And you want this to be totally brilliant. I was gonna say think of glitter, sequins, chandeliers, but I don't think they have those things at a pub. So think beer glasses and candles, that kind of thing. Just totally brilliant. And this is a perfect spot to talk about these articulation markings. So you see there are so many, right? But there's only 4. An accent. You have those triangles that are filled in. You have the caret, like that mountaintop peak looking thing. And then you have the simple staccato. So 2 of these I interpret it as 2 of them are for length and 2 of them is for volume. So the accent, let's talk about the accent. So the regular accent, I just take it to be a general definition of an accent. Louder than the surrounding notes. So you can do that. And then the one that looks like a mountain peak, I interpret that as an accent with a little bit more ping, right? It's just a little bit sharper volume spike on there. And then the regular staccato, take it as a general meaning, general definition of detached. So it could be dun, 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 or da, 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 or da, 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 right? Whatever you think is appropriate. And then likewise, the triangles that are filled in, I mean that to be, or I understand that to be a staccato, but just short, really short. So it's very clear, and it works, if you just look at this part. Right, the left hand has a regular accent, but that right hand got that little extra ping, right? And that's gonna make it work. Okay, and whenever the right hand has acrobatics, gymnastics to do, the left hand needs to be in place. The left hand is not easy, but it is easier than the right hand. So practice it until you can just do it without being able to look at it, because your eyes are going to be on the right hand, or which hand has the more crazy acrobatics to do. Okay, in this part, instead of thinking like 2 notes, I have to play 2 notes separately, I just simply play them together and lift the first one. When you play it fast enough, it sounds fine. And here, whirling dancers, sweeping lines. Just try to create as many circles. It doesn't always have to be getting faster, right? Un poco accelerando. Maybe you can, on the down curves, you could slow down just a little bit and have sort of that centripetal kind of feeling. So you keep getting the swirly patterns going in. Yeah, and then moving on. Arpeggios. For arpeggios, I just think of it as positional downwards motion. So you're not having to do the chicken wing thing and like twist your wrists in like just weird ways. And so you'll connecting the last note of that position with a new one. Your fingers will learn to let go of it at the last moment while your wrist is gently moving you towards, right? It's like your wrist is like a train track. Like it's just a dolly that's on a track. And that'll get you a pretty smooth sounding arpeggio. And then we have our glissando. Most people like to do their glissandos in like a flat kind of way, but this one is fortissimo. So to get extra power, you want to put your hand perpendicular to the keys. And just a warning, there is a speed that you need to play it at, or else you will get blisters and they will pop. So just fast enough, right? Rather than, that's much weaker. So it feels much better, more refreshing. The dance theme comes back now in octaves in the left hand. But keep it still lively, don't weigh it down. Yeah, and then we keep going, and when we get to the D flat section here, it mirrors the section we had before in A flat, right? But now it's a fifth up, it's higher, so maybe a little bit more energy, heightened, a little bit crazier perhaps. They're getting really into this, they're being spellbound, right? Okay, and it just gets crazier and crazier swirls. It's so much at the top of the piano, right? There's not much piano left. So all the way to the extremes of the piano. Don't rush the duples. The octaves. You can do different things, right? Practice just the thumbs, kind of a location thing. You could practice it again, just in different ways. Oops, sorry. Just whatever you can do to, practice it in different formations that are not in the score, so that you never get stuck. And I just start a little bit slower too, so I get dramatic effect. And then the last duples. Sorry. And we have the last statement of the theme here. And it transforms into a voice. Let me just play this part for you. It becomes a vocal line, right? And previously it was instrumental. So as the fiddle, the sounds of the fiddle grow softer and softer, we transition into the seduction theme. Expressivo amoroso, right? Like lovingly expressive, flirtatiously expressive. So this theme, it keeps coming back. In right? Kind of developed. You have, or you have, and it keeps coming back again and again. So that just tells me that Faust, who's doing the seduction, is a one-liner dude. So we as pianists have to help him out in every way that we can. Think of all the inflections, nuances that you can infuse into this one-line phrase. So let's give it a shot. And here the girl is like, no, I don't think so. Faust tries again. Maybe. I don't know. Faust says, oh baby, please. And the girl, dolce appassionato, passionately dolce, sweet, she starts to give in. So a little breathless each time. Notice all these expressive markings, più appassionato, more passionate, right? These are little clues as to what's happening in the story. So definitely use them to get your imagination going. And also because of its repetitive nature, you want everything that you can do to make this as interesting as possible. Perdendosi, just die off, 4 bars of rest into silence so that we can now hear the nightingales of death. Okay, really hard to get the clarity, get the triple P going, right? So let's make it as easy as possible. One way you can think of it is to just think of it as just the thirds. And then all of a sudden it becomes a lot easier, right? And then just the top notes, they're just auxiliary notes that you could just wiggle them out or just tap them, right? And some pianos are heavier and some pianos are lighter, right? Depending on which piano you get, this is one of the first things that I check on a new piano. If you need to play slower, fine, right? Like if you've heard nightingales, actually, they don't really sound like this. So, right, you can fidget a little bit with this. Okay, and now we have the seduction theme once again. This time it's more atmospheric, right? In the beginning, Faust is using his one line. Now it's more atmospheric. Con grazia, dolce amoroso, quieto in the left hand, right? So let's talk about the different touch you can use. Let's talk about the left hand first, quieto, quiet. You want kind of like a fuzziness. So una corta, yes, but just a little bit. You want the hammers to just move slightly enough that they're not in the grooves, right? In the hammers. But kind of sometimes if you press it just a little bit, the hammers graze that third string ever so slightly, so you get like a weird shimmer thing. Pedals, same thing. You just want the slightest bit of fuzz from that felt grazing on the strings. And I would practice it starting with miming it, and then find that point in the keys where it can strike the strings. And then you get a nice fuzzy kind of left hand atmospheric feel. The right hand, we want it to turn this into a mallet with the softest, fuzziest felt. And here we have some nightingales with bugs masquerading as fairies, perhaps. Super romantic mood lighting, right? And then here we have the nightingales again, but now we have a tritone. And they sound a little bit more frantic. And then transitioning our gaze going towards the moonlight. And here for this version of the seduction theme, we have right hand shimmering with reflections. Right, perhaps the shimmering reflections of the pale moonlight, maybe the reflection of the lovers, right? It's actually reflecting the actual theme. So just get it really shimmering. If you want a little ping on the pinky, I'm fine with that. Get some really good bass notes in there. So shimmer, shimmer, shimmer all the way. You want a little bit of distance between the notes when you play them. It is soft, but that distance will get like a really direct attack on the string. So you'll get a clean clarity instead of, it's a little bit more muted if you stay too close to the keys. Left hand, I have one of my favorite textures. It's staccatos caught in the pedal, and always for me it seems like little pebbles boom, 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 and getting dropped in the water, or just a little bit of light that's glowing just for a second, right? And Liszt carries it further on, measure 620, where he writes più appassionato ma non accelerando, more passionate, but do not get faster. So you have to feel that tension of wanting to get faster, but that restraint is what's going to give it its feeling of restraint. and here più mosso. More emotion, but not presto, right? We don't want to kill ourselves just yet. We're not at the end of the story. So the waltz theme comes back, but it's so much more sinister, and it's coming from the depths. So keep it nice and soft. Recognize that there are no accents, so keep it muted and low. Okay, this next thing, you can do it in one hand, but why not two? Gets me faster down there. Okay, here, what is this? It's a seduction theme, right? But why is it so low in octaves buried, right? Is it Mephistopheles manipulating all of this? What is it, right? Same thing with the these arpeggios, you get a one connecting note. So I would practice that 5-1 connection. And then always kind of know where your center of your hand is, which is going to be this middle note. And that's going to be kind of like a fulcrum of the seesaw. And that's going to help you just locate your positions up and down this the keyboard. For here, the melody, make it come up in swirls, in circles, so that it's not just a straight crescendo, right? That's going to be much more effective, especially with these arpeggios. It already gives a circular shape to it. Theme yet again, but desperate instead of we have right, much more desperate, totally crazed, con fuoco. Just a little cheat here. I know that's what's written. But it sounds better for me when I do it. I don't play that first octave. Then I get a much clearer da-da-dum-bum instead of, yeah. So, I don't know. I think it's fine if you can leave out that octave. I see stringendo, so I start slower. For any leaps like this, I play the fastest travel time game. So you just want to see how fast you can get into that next position. I told you it keeps me very much in shape. And now we switch to 2/4. I call this a devil's two-step. Presto, strepitoso. Strepitoso in regular usage in Italian means amazing, awesome. For music, it means extremely loud and fast, and that's what we're gonna do, but in control. We've got the Mephistopheles, right? Just kind of stepping along. Let's try. And then the mere tiny humans, they're like, oh my gosh, we didn't know. So make a crescendo into that subito mezzo forte, drop down, and do a really effective crescendo. And then Mephistopheles comes back. we get to the leaps of death. So this is actually the seduction theme in disguise, in like a terrible disguise. It's really hard, right? So let's make it harder when we practice, so that when we come back to it, it's that 1% easier, right? So a couple things that you can do. I double this up. And you want a really good grip on those chords. Oh. The other thing you can do is add an extra octave in that leap. You're gonna run out of piano here, so you want to start down here. It's so hard. I always admire pianists who can play all 4 iterations of these leaps, like just perfectly clean. So that's something you can do. And you know, if you play too slowly, the trampoline, like the circular motion, doesn't quite work, right? You can't stay in the air for too long. So you just have to find that perfect tempo for you, for your body, that works on whatever particular piano that you're playing on. So don't worry about going too fast, but also know that if you go too slow, you might lose that momentum that is needed to kind of bounce off of this one, right? And also clean up your left hand, because if this is not in control, there is no hope for your right hand. So practice again. That game to see how fast you can travel from one position to the other. Okay, these chords right after the leaps are going to feel kind of like just arduous. So what I like to do, again, make my practicing a little bit more difficult. I add extra chords to this, 2 extra. So when I come back to it, or you're like, oh, it's just 3 chords at a time. Cool. And then, yeah, let's just play through it. Here, tutta forza, right? Triple forte. We need as much power as we can muster up. When you do that at first, you might feel like, gosh, it's not enough power. Let's try just using our weight and the gravity that we all have. Right? If we just drop it, I'm not using muscles, just that's a lot of power that you already have. So get your ear adjusted to it, let your body know that you have that power. Your ears know what to look for. And don't underestimate how much power you actually already have. Even here, I'll use 2 hands just to get it in my ear. And then I can replicate it. It's like magic sometimes. Just to see how much power you do have. For these arpeggios, again, positioning, just chord to chord to chord. Right? And sometimes you see that caret at the end, right? Just land it. That's a marker for you, so that you're not just mindlessly, terrifyingly just doing your octaves. And then whenever you can land it. So it kind of just places it, and you have a marker for your hands, for your mind. Yeah. at this point, right? Okay, here, at this point, after pages of presto and just doubles, two-step, and everything else, your lactic acid is acting up in your muscles. So when I see pianists play all of that in the right hand, I gotta ask myself, why, when you can do, right, in two hands. And it's actually very easily done. You just take every other note, starting with your right hand. And because there are 7 notes in each hand, you can use the scale fingering, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And you get such a more like brilliant, right, just tumble down into this part where I don't have any tips for you except say a little prayer that you make it through. And here we're back to the seduction theme. Is it a memory? Is it still going on? And here the nightingale comes back, but it kind of transforms into a vocal line, right? It gets, I don't know, it starts speaking. Kind of mocking, maybe it's showing its true form. In the poem, Lenau's poem, it says the singer ordered by the devil himself. So is it possessed by Mephistopheles? Is Mephistopheles the nightingale? Was it always the devil? Back to presto, empty bar of 1. Same thing here, I add extra chords to practice. And just kind of throwing it in. Here again, the 5-1 connection for your arpeggios. Keep your left hand just keeping time. The motor is here. For this last octave run, you know, doing this is one of the easiest things we can do, right? But the hard part is the directional change. So you want to just mark that. Here we start going into contrary motion. A little bit turn around in the left hand. So those are the only things you need to mark. I like to practice it together too. Then it'll feel much easier once you know where you're turning directions. And that's how you play the Mephisto Waltz.
Well, bravo, Irene, on this this amazing explanation of the piece. You know, I certainly am so impressed with your prowess with the piece, and you're just demonstrating, you know, like it's nothing, and just I can't imagine, you know, performing that, but it takes even a greater level of command to just chat and play it casually like you're doing. So I think it's amazing. And you know, one thing that I'm actually wondering about is Ted. You know, we're gonna hear a performance. Is that right of it pretty soon? But
whatever.
Before we do so, I was just wondering to hear about any of your personal experiences with this piece. Like, when did you first learn it? Like, how there's a number of people are like, wow, how does she do this? It's magic, you know. And I agree. I mean, has this been a piece that it's been a part of your life for a while now, or?
Yeah, it definitely is a part of my life. It's a piece that I keep going back to just to see if I have the chops, you know. But it's been years, and I remember when I first had to learn it and perform it, it was a terrifying experience, right? Like there's so many, not just the technical aspects, but the storyline, making sure that all parts of the story is coming alive and it's being portrayed. I think sometimes that's the hardest part. And still being told while you're doing all these crazy leaps and like trills and oh my gosh, right? So, but then every time you perform, the funny thing with Liszt is, maybe Dominic also feels this way, is that Liszt is very pianistic in a weird way. There are definitely pieces that, it's impossible to play almost. But something like this, I feel there's just so much music, and even the technical stuff, it feels like it's doable. And so you keep working at it. You don't feel this dread of like, oh, it's impossible. Why am I even working on it? But this is like, oh, this feels good. I know I just need to do that extra bit of like practicing the, fast travel practice, those kinds of things. So yeah, it just takes time for sure.
And then I have another technical question that you talked a little bit about. But if we take a look at, I'm going to pull up the score in a second. Take a look at bar 452. This kind of music happens all the time, where it's these sort of it's almost like trills. But what advice would you have for our users to prevent their hands from locking up during these really quick, like is it wrist rotation that you're working with a lot, or is it elbow, or what advice do you have for that?
Yeah, for these like bigger trills, just because it's not a one note trill, it involves more notes. You want the loosest wrists possible. And I talked about kind of conceiving this as, or thinking of this as just triplets, right? So you kind of want to have a 45-degree angle feeling going into the keys. So you're just, if you had to do it on a piano lid, that's kind of the motion you want, just with rotation, because that's how we're built. And again, just loose wrists. You're not using muscles. You're just using the weight that you have, just like you would use a hammer.
Wonderful. And then the last question that I have as well is, if we look at page 88, I'll pull the score up in a second. There's this little asterisk about a designation, and I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that. It's that asterisk for bar 741, and then let's pull up this score really quick. There's this bottom note. Do you see that, the designation? Is that basically just talking about the articulation for those notes in terms of accents or those mountaintops? Or
yeah, I think definitely it just makes some sense musically, because that's the topmost note in that line. So let me see if I'm even doing it. Yeah, right? You kind of want to bring that out, and that's a moment where you can almost reset yourself also. So use that functionally, but also in a programmatic, dramatic way. I think that would help your playing. Yeah.
Excellent. And then actually, Frank has a question specifically about measures 764. Frank's asking about whether, and then we'll let you play pretty soon. And then everyone, we can have some questions, of course, afterwards. There'll be a Q&A after the performance. Maybe you'll be inspired as well by her playing. But he's asking specifically about measure 764. Can you ask Irene what directional movement is she thinking in terms of, are you thinking like the single note to the octave? Are you thinking the octave down to the single note? In other words, are you thinking like from the bottom up, da-dum? Are you thinking more like the other way around? Just out of curiosity?
Let's see. I'm definitely, okay, this is what I'm thinking about. The top note I do with muscle memory. So I think I am throwing my hand up there, and I also am thinking A. And if you've done enough practicing of scales, just piano, watching enough tone bass, then you know that sometimes your hand will get there, right? But what I'm kind of locating is my second finger, because that's my launching point. So as soon as I throw my hand up there, I'm thinking about nailing the next. So oftentimes I'll be missing the top note, but I think it's more important to not miss that bottom note, because that's going to determine, right? Like all of these are an octave apart. So if you have that distance memorized and you have your launching point there, then right, theoretically you should be able to get every single one of these theoretically.
Oh, that's really wonderful. I mean, and if any of you have other questions as Irene performs, let us know, and we're happy to ask her. It's a real treat and treasure to have her here to demonstrate and now perform for you all. So I think we'll start with the performance now, and then ask any questions that you guys would like. I know I'm looking forward to this. I have a front row seat.
Oh my gosh.
Enjoy, everyone. Bravo, my gosh. Well, I know that I'm absolutely astounded to hear you playing like this. It's just so exhilarating. I feel the energy. Hopefully, all of you guys also feel that energy. I know that everyone's cheering and bravoing you right now virtually in the chat. I mean, and actually, there's a few comments about how Monica, for example, is making a really good comment about how she's not used to lessons that end with the performance of a piece. So that's really great. I know that it makes the performance even more enlightening to have that walkthrough that you gave. And there's just a few questions that I have for you, and after this performance, and a few other people have for you as well that we can get to now. But again, bravo! You're not even sweating. It's crazy. But again, just extraordinary, and it's amazing how I would say what we really felt is, again, all of these technical challenges really felt at the service of the music. We could hear all the birds, we could feel the dancing, and that's not something that we always get in the music of Liszt. And I think that's something that's really appealing to so many of our viewers is this approach, because a lot of us feel like Liszt is unapproachable because of certain performances that we're oversaturated by on YouTube. But it's a few people are saying maybe a lot of people want to play this piece, and maybe they'll take a look at some sections for themselves to try to start to approach this mountain. And actually, that's one of my questions, is that for the viewers, how would you approach this piece from the beginning? Do you typically start learning the piece just from the very beginning, or would you start with certain sections perhaps in tackling a piece like this? Or do you have any advice for someone that's trying to start this work?
Yeah, I think starting this piece, first of all, I think you have to want to learn this, have a love for the story, for the music, because you're going to be working on it for quite a while, right? So you're going to be living with this piece. So first have that, and then after that, I would sit down with the score, listen to a few recordings, and don't get disheartened. And then another thing you can do is approach someone who has played this piece and learned it, and ask them like, what are some like heads up that you can give me. After that, I would just work from the beginning, just knowing that something like that, you want to just go ahead and start learning that part. The third section, right? Like you have the waltz section, the seduction, and then like the crazy mad finale, that section. The last section often has the trickiest parts, but the first section also has its the octave stuff. So I would read, or I would work on little sections by itself. Don't get stuck on this one, because that's pretty easy. So get ahead to the octaves. Work on that middle section a lot, actually the slow part, because that takes a lot of imagination. So whenever you need a break from practicing technical stuff, just go to the middle section, work on that. And once in a while, I would suggest getting an overview so that you don't lose sight of what your goal is, and how to piece all those different parts together. Yeah.
Excellent. And I actually have one clarifying question about 694. You went over it a little quickly, and I didn't want to interrupt you, but could you specify exactly which note are you leaving out in 694? I was wondering if it was, you said you were leaving out an octave, and you did a little fast, so I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's actually, you want that melody, ba-da-dum, so I'm not playing that thumb. The F sharp.
Of the second triplets?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That eighth
Great.
note. I'm just playing that instead, because that for me, a 4-1 is a little bit of a stretch, and at that tempo I just can't focus on that thumb. So
I see. That's great.
And there's so many notes in their left hand anyway. Nobody's gonna miss an extra D or an F sharp. So.
Yes, but this isn't Brahms or Beethoven, is it?
No, that sticklers would come at me with pitchforks. So.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I just want to share with you that everyone thinks that you're absolutely superb and fantastic, magical, and again, everybody's just having such a wonderful time hearing you live performing, and so those are the general questions that people had for this particular piece. Are there any other thoughts? If you have any other thoughts that you guys have that you'd like to ask Irene, please do so. But Irene, are there any last things that you'd like to chat about with this piece, or any last comments? Or
no, I would just urge everybody. I guess I don't know, 17 and older, to read the Lenau poem. I think it's so great. Like most people just go off of that program blurb that I read you earlier, thinking that's enough, but actually. You read that poem and all of a sudden, right, it's in German, so you might get some weird, funky, like Google Translate, but it gives you a really great idea what's going on. So read it, be inspired, love this piece, like even the technical aspects. It's so fun, right? It's so unique. No other piece has right? Crazy things like that. So yeah, just enjoy it.
And then actually Jenny just posted a question that is very good as well. Irene, how do you prepare your mind to keep such laser focus through such a demanding piece? Thank you so much.
Laser focus. I try. But I think just practicing awareness, while you're practicing going through so many run-throughs, just trying to see if you can keep your focus for 12 minutes. That's something you can definitely build up, but also giving yourself goals, right? Because you never know where your mind is going to be when you're performing. So you could think of the storyline. Can you follow the storyline all the way through? Can you focus just on your left hand the entire time? I know Clyburn, before he won the Tchaikovsky competition, his teacher apparently made him play his entire repertoire program just his left hand, and he was able to do it, I guess, and then he won. So there you go, you could do that. Yeah.
Wow. I never knew that story. Gosh. Well, I mean that's and then on top of that, my other question is, like, again, when you're preparing this piece again, so you've had it in your repertoire for a number of years. Mm-hmm. For you, is it more of a mental re-preparation to bring a piece back, or is it more also technical? Like, does your muscle memory keep a lot of this stuff, or do you have to? Is it your brain or your muscle memory, or that you have to recalibrate?
It does and it doesn't. I think mentally it comes back pretty quickly, because once you have the story set, that's easy to remember. But the physical part, I do try to play it once through after a big hiatus, and it's not always there. Well, I mean, the easier parts are, but those technical spots, it becomes very clear what work needs to be done. So that I just go back to my different games, make sure I can nail those, and then just run it through. That's the hardest part, right? You can just sit here and practice little sections, but putting it all together, can you do it when your arm starts acting up? Can you do it when, like, you've just, you're just playing a little bit too fast or a little too loud? Can you still get through the other sections? That's, yeah.
And then another question is, I mean, this piece is obviously so difficult and crazy fast. Do you practice slow, moderate tempos, fast tempos? Like, what kind of tempo practice would you approach this with? All tempos.
All tempos.
And what would the different tempos represent to you? Like what if you're doing slow practice? What are you thinking about when you're doing slow practice?
When I'm doing slow practice, I make sure that I'm grabbing all the notes. I know exactly which finger is the voice. What I want to bring out is my left hand in place. And then I use a mixture of slow and fast. Remember, I told you about the fast travel game. That's a mixture of, right, super lightning fast speed, and then just making sure you're in place, and then moving again. So it's kind of like a frog or like a cobra striking, right? They like locate their prey, and then they just go for it, and that's it. But they can't miss. So that's the kind of like specific, like just specific practice with awareness.
And then one last, like, very technical question is, could you actually explain to us a bit more in detail how do you exactly play the double glissando? What fingers are you using?
Oh.
Just to take one last clarification on that, because you do it so well, and that's always a tricky thing,
I
you know.
see.
So I appreciated how you spoke about the speed of the glissando, but which finger do you use in like the left hand, for example?
Oh, I just use the typical thumb nail, and then right hand's just 3. I guess I'm just sticking it straight, kind of perpendicular, right? So whatever this thumbnail and these thumbnails, I don't want to be. I've gotten blisters before, so I just use the thumbnails and perpendicular and drag it across. That should usually do it.
And then to take a look at that score really quick, and then it goes all the way up to that high E, and this is on page 75. And I noticed that, so you do that glissando, and then there's like a little bit of a almost breath, slightly, in order to really place
Just
that,
set
right?
it, yeah.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that we're talking about glissandos here, but some people they try to connect it exactly, and they kind of, it's harder to do that. The way you're doing it's the correct way, I think, and you take a little bit of a small breath or something, right?
Yeah.
But
because or else I'm not gonna nail that E, and it's very important, right? Because you're gonna play a bunch of E's afterwards, so people will know if you miss it. so I guess I land with 3s here, and then I take it over. So practicing that distance is something I do, so I don't overuse my nails or something like that.
So you practice sometimes without playing the notes altogether. Okay.
It takes so much energy.
Yeah.
There's always a threat of blistering, and
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you so much for that. I was wondering about that, but it looks like I think everyone's happily satisfied, and I think everyone learned a lot today, including myself. And just to come back to you all, if you have any further questions, we'll have Dr. Kim certainly back in the future. So feel free to ask any further follow-up questions in our threads, in our forums. And if you're curious to hear her teach something else, let us know, and I can see about asking her. But I know that I've learned a lot today. I've enjoyed the performance so much, and I just want to thank you so much, Irene, for coming out today.
Oh, thanks, Dominic, so much. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and just enjoy practicing and making music.
Thanks so much, everyone. And just to give everyone a follow-up to next week, we've got 2 different live streams. On Tuesday, we're talking with Jared Dunn about Taubman approach, about the invisible motions beneath virtuosity. So tune in for that. And then we've got a virtual masterclass next week as well on Bach and Brahms. And also, next week we'll be starting our Christmas challenge, or festivity challenge is what we like to call it. And so if you got, I noticed that, I think, Gail, you were speaking a little bit with Monica about the Nutcracker Suite. So if any of you are practicing this repertoire, we're going to have a forum for you to submit it. And then, of course, December 22nd of this month, we'll be having our holiday guitar piano watch party of all this repertoire. So stay tuned for next Monday, that being available to submit your videos. And until then, thanks everyone for joining. And thank you so much, Irene, for being here this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks, Dominic.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.